So Shabbat Shalom. So the title of this text sheet, I'm laughing for a lot of reasons, but especially because the title of this text sheet is Rule Following. This was inspired by a moment that I had this week on Thursday at the Morning Minyan. If you've never been to the Adat Shalom Morning Minyan, I can tell you for certain it is the most fun anyone can have at 7 o'clock in the morning on a weekday. I highly encourage all of you to join and at least check it out and get a taste of that community. It's really a highlight of my week. So on Thursday, I was leading the Torah service at the Morning Minyan, and I made a fairly offhand comment like, we're going to continue on page 62 and we're going to rise because it says so in the book. And so one of my lovely Minyan people said, "Oh, you're a rule follower." And I was like, I'm not a what? I don't see myself that way. But then I thought about it, and last year I did teach high school, and I've taught school before last year as well. And then before that, I worked at an addiction rehab doing pastoral counseling. And these are environments in which rules are very necessary and important. And so even though I don't really feel like I'm a rule follower, maybe I'm better at, or at least more willing to enforce rules than some people are. And perhaps that's why I found myself in these stations in life. So thinking about that and thinking about today, thinking about our Parashat Eikev, the book of Deuteronomy, the whole thing, and we've been reading it for a few weeks now already, it's a bunch of different rules. It is a lot of rules. So why would you follow rules anyway? What's the point? Isn't it more fun to just do whatever we want? Well, the book of Deuteronomy, in addition to giving us rules, gives us motivation to follow them. So we'll skip ahead for a second, just take a peek at the back of the sheet. This is the second paragraph of the Shema. The Shema has 3 paragraphs. The first one we always read out loud. The third one we read some of it out loud. It's more familiar to us. But the second paragraph seems shrouded in secrecy, or at least silence. So we're going to look at it in detail. But first, let's flip to the front again. Because when we read the third paragraph of the Shema in our Torah scroll, like we do this week for Parashat Eikev, it's preceded by these 3 sentences that give us motivation to follow the rules that come on the backside of the sheet. So let's read them. Okay. So verse 10, "For the land you are about to enter and possess is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come. There, in Egypt that is, the grain you sowed had to be watered by your own labors like a vegetable garden. But the land that you are about to cross into and possess, which is our promised land, it's a land of hills and valleys, and it soaks up its water from the rains of heaven. It is a land which your God looks after, on which your God always keeps an eye from year's beginning to year's end." So what this is saying is that God will water your plants for you. You don't have to worry about that part. But perhaps in language that translates a little bit more to those of us who don't farm full time, you will have food. For us, what this means is you're going to have money in your bank account. That direct deposit is just going to keep happening. You're going to have long-term stability. Everybody's tuition is going to be paid for. You'll have retirement. You can have all of this, God says, if you follow the rules. You've got to follow the rules. And this is our motivation because we want this success, this stability. We want God to water our plants in our promised land. You got to follow the rules though. Okay, so now we go over to the back. Okay, so this is our second paragraph of the Shema. So this is where we get a little bit more in detail about the rewards and unfortunately about the punishment, what not to do. Okay, so we'll start by reading at the top, verse 13. "If then you obey the commandments that I enjoin upon you this day, loving your God and serving God with all your heart and soul, if you do this, I will grant the rain for your land in season, the early rain and the late. You shall gather in your new grain and wine and oil. I will also provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and thus you shall eat your fill." So we kind of talked about this already on the first side of the page. We're going to have prosperity. If we follow the rules, we will be prosperous. Isn't this great motivation? I think so, yeah. I love it. So now we have verse 16. My husband was actually telling me, we were talking about this text yesterday at Shabbat dinner, and he was saying in the Persian custom, this whole paragraph is read out loud, but this verse 16 is read quietly because it's the thing that we don't want to hear, right? Take care not to be lured away to serve other gods and bow to them. This is the one sentence of this paragraph that gives us, here's the thing you shouldn't do. So some examples that perhaps might be more relatable to us than serving other gods. Don't bite your sister. This is a favorite that I've heard parents say to children, don't bite your sister. And also a favorite one for those of us who go to the movie theater, no phones in the movie theater, put that phone away. We don't like being told no. We don't. But sometimes it's the best way to be clear. And I think that's why we have these rules phrased as no, don't do that. Okay, so now we'll go into the punishment, which again is said quietly. For God's anger will flare up against you, shutting up the skies so that there will be no rain, and the ground will not yield its produce, and you will soon perish from the good land that God is assigning to you. So the punishment is that your prosperity, your stability goes away. We don't want that. We'd rather have prosperity and stability, and so hopefully we'll follow the rules. Now, we started in sentence 18. This is very interesting because these sentences here give us reminders, which we've kind of made into rules in Jewish tradition. So sentence 18, therefore impress these words upon your very heart, bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. So if you come to morning minyan, we wear tefillin, the sign on our arm, the symbol above our forehead, which remind us of these instructions. And teach them to your children, reciting them when you stay at home and when you are away. Teaching our children is huge in Jewish tradition. When you lie down and when you get up, we're supposed to say words of Torah at the beginning and end of every day, and inscribe them upon the doorposts of your house and on your gates, which are our mezuzot, which we have on the doorpost. I think it's so interesting, especially as today we've spent a lot of time and effort learning about our Torah service, that the tefillin that are here and here, the mezuzot that are on our doorways, are essentially itty-bitty Torahs. It's not the whole content of the Torah in there, but it's a little fragment of the same type of parchment, the same type of calligraphy that serves as those reminders. And so now back to the point. Why do we want to follow these rules anyway? This is a lot of effort. I'm kind of even done thinking about rules, aren't we? Okay, but here's the point. To the end that you and your children may endure, that in the land that God swore to your fathers to assign to them, as long as there is a heaven over the earth. So the point is so we can endure in our promised land. There's a point to these rules. I think if you have your own children, or if you've ever cared for children, parents and teachers and grown-ups give a bunch of rules to children, and they're usually for a good reason. But when you're a kid, you're like, that's not a good reason. I don't want to do that. I don't want to wear sunscreen. It's just not a good reason. But so obviously we're here in community. We're not children, we're adults. So as adults, here's, I think, what our takeaway should be when it comes to rules. So I learned from a very wise cantor. If you're going to drink, you should drink responsibly. No, sorry. Drink responsibly. Not responsively. Responsibly.
That means we take a sip, you take a sip, we take a sip. That's drinking responsibly.
So even when we're drinking responsibly, we've still got to drink responsibly. When it comes to rules as adults, we have to be moderate, which is hard. We don't want to be too rule following. We don't want to have too many rules. It's restrictive. It's not playful. But we don't want to have too few rules either. It's chaotic. It gets disrespectful after a while. So we've got to make our rules and follow our rules for the right reasons. Kind of a big ask. But what we're going for, which I think we can agree is all worth it, stability, security, and respect. Shabbat Shalom.